Rainbows, happiness, happy days, extremely happy video. This video is nothing but very happy and extremely happy, good energy, happy video vibes, lots of jokes and humor. Hey folks, if you're seeing this right now, this is again another repeated attempt to upload this video, so I'm going to try give you an update to try skip the skip. But I am in New Mexico right now, and if you're seeing this footage, that means that the task here has been successful. Yes, I am in New Mexico for a reason concerning the subject matter of today's video, and we have something absolutely massive coming soon. Full on documentary on this channel. We're switching some of the content up and going more in depth and working with more people. But yeah, this has been an extreme pain in my bum trying to get these videos uploaded, but hopefully this completely works. I got a few more seconds to go till we can start. It's not my choice. Anyways, let's get into it. Some of the files that you're about to see are indescribably disturbing. They are deeply frightening, incredibly alarming, and just disgusting. By the end of this, I think that your opinion on Epstein will change fully. And yeah. Oh my God. So we're just going to hop right into this today. As you guys know, I've been deep diving the Epstein files for the past, I've been doing it for the last few years. The first video on this channel and of this podcast, it was about Epstein. So it's kind of what I started off with, and that's where we've been for a long time. But yeah, the other day I just decided to search on the DOJ website and go through all of the terms and documents that came up associated with that search. Now, I'm really good friends with a guy named Nick Bryant. He and I have been working on a project together for about 2 years now. Nick is actually the guy who first got Epstein's Black Book published in the press. He got a copy of it in the early 2010s. Nick is actually mentioned in the Epstein files, not in a bad way, but because Epstein himself, he wrote a message, or somebody wrote a message in Epstein's orbit and sent it to everybody in Epstein's world and basically said, hey, there's this journalist you need to know about, Nick Bryant. Please watch out for him. He's named directly by Epstein and his co-conspirators as being someone to watch out for, which I think is badass, but it's a little scary because, like, talking to Nick, he said he didn't know that Epstein and his people put out an APB on him, essentially, like a be on the lookout, a bolo alert. Reason I'm saying this, though, is because Nick has shared with me some emails that he's been able to find and that he came across that are also just disturbing beyond belief. And I've wanted to do a proper sit-down, extended Epstein files video where I'm going through all the different files that I've found, because I have a whole database on my computer of them, but that's going to be coming at the end of this week. For now, we're just going to focus on these terms, and let's just get into it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Welcome to the Conspiracy Files. Thank you for watching. First of all, I've got PDF. So this is sent in 2018 by a man named Brian Bishop to Jeffrey Epstein. You'll see his email is jeevacation@gmail.com. The subject is designer. Basically, here is the first email. This chain. Jeffrey, here's a deck about my designer project. I've talked with Austin again, and we have a series of questions about how serious you are about wanting this and what the ground rules are for me even exploring this with you and getting the next steps. Most of these questions around your requirements for secrecy and privacy, specifically regarding reputational risk and also any financial involvement. I think there would also need to be some understanding about goals and feasibility of different results. I think that one way this could be done is under the banner of my designer project, since the other deliverable is similar and shares so many of the same procedures and lab requirements. This might offer a sufficient level of deniability. I propose another call on Monday in the afternoon to discuss these issues. Please propose a time. Thank you, Brian. So basically, you see there, this guy is talking about test tube-based designer lab requirements, and it's very interesting because they're talking here about deniability. Let's say they get called out on this. Someone exposes what's going on here with this designer project. They're talking about how they can hide this and they can shroud this in secrecy, which I find to be also disturbing. Obviously, Epstein, though, writes back, I'm traveling in the Middle East until the 1st. Let's do it after that. I have no issue with investing. The problem is only if I am seen to lead, which means essentially Epstein had no problem in making this happen, but Yeah, he just didn't want to be the face of it. And we're going to talk about this in a second. But to finish this up, then Brian Bishop writes back to Epstein and says, how about Wednesday, August 2nd? Sounds like you could be the first investor as long as absolute anonymity is kept. I've always envisioned there would be anonymity requirements about babies. We can't publicly identify who these are or their parents or benefactors. It would brand the child as, essentially and sadly, a freak for life in the media. So I had always assumed the investor would need absolute anonymity for these kinds of products. So the financial structure needs to be designed with these details in mind. Let's discuss these issues in early August when you're back in the game. Austin has been advising me on this, and it's an open question whether he will be involved in designer. In terms of his personal interest, happy to do our next call with or without him. Noticed he wasn't CC'd. So what does that mean? Clearly they're talking about some sort of a project to scientifically create a designer baby. Now, we know at Zorro Ranch, this is something that is pretty well known. Epstein was working on cloning, designing, genetic altering. He was really obsessed with science and basically playing God. And you see that throughout a lot of the projects that he took on and the scientists that he decided to fund. He didn't just fund random scientists and individuals with his cash. He was very selective with whose work he wanted to invest in because it could potentially help him in creating a superhuman race of designer babies using his own DNA further down the line. And I get it. It sounds crazy. It sounds like something from a science fiction film. But trust me, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to weirdness with Epstein and the baby. But you can see here in 2018, he was working on this project. And keep in mind, this guy, Brian Bishop, whoever he is, he's talking to Epstein about the need to keep it a secret, to keep his name off of the project, which means obviously he knows who Epstein is. He's looked into Epstein's background. At this point, it's well known that Epstein was a who targeted a number of girls. And this is well known in the media. He was convicted of it. He had served his time. So this guy agreeing to go all in on a project to literally create, as he calls, freak for life test tube designer for a billionaire. I mean, you can't make this shit up, but it's real. This is real in the files. If you want to look up any of these damn files, you can. I'll provide you the EFTA number. Go verify them yourself. But yeah, so this guy knew Jeffrey Epstein as a sex offender, quite obviously, but he's agreeing to literally play God and create, I don't know what a designer baby is, to be honest, but he's willing to create them with Epstein. Then we got, again, here's the EFTA number. Here's another email between Brian Bishop and Jeffrey Epstein. And then he says down here, this is a little bit after that last email, attached is the document you requested. It's the use of funds spreadsheet for the designer and human cloning company. Next steps, I am happy to hop on another call, or I could take a trip to meet you in person. From Brian. Then Epstein says, okay, I'm back on the US on late Tuesday, back in action on Wednesday. And the email is designer use of funds. So not only do we have designer here now we have human cloning project. Epstein is trying to get into the world of cloning human beings. What could a sadistic, sex-offending human trafficker possibly want with a human cloning program? I don't know. I mean, it's so insane to me. It's almost like lab-grown diamonds, if you want to envision that. You know, I'd imagine for someone like Epstein to get a diamond, let's refer to in this allegory as a diamond. So in traditional diamond making, you'd have to go to the mines, you'd have to go through all these deeply unethical, horrific procedures to get little diamonds. And it's so much effort and it costs so much and you have to do this and that. But lab-grown diamonds, you create them in a lab and they're basically here. The ethics is cut out of it when it comes to diamonds, and they look the same. They are the same, essentially. That's how I see this. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, taking a baby and making it in a lab takes the ethics out of it. That's not obviously what I'm saying at all. But for Epstein, it is interesting because why go out in the world and have to slowly work these victims into his world of when he could just potentially grow them in a lab? And, you know, a lot of sick people want them as young as possible. A lot of these sickos want. We've covered that. This is not a conspiracy. This is not something that I'm making up. There are so many. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of real life criminal cases, people that are prosecuted, that are in prison right now that attacked. that specifically downloaded videos of being, that specifically want weeks old. This is not some sort of a myth. This is a real thing that some of these people are into. So for Epstein, if you're providing these individuals with the child of their dreams, why not take it a step further? And, there are already allegations that Epstein was running sort of farms, and we talked about it recently, using women as an incubator to have and put them back. If you haven't seen the Epstein Diaries video, watch that. But yeah, God, it just makes me absolutely ill and sick to my stomach. But this is sadly the world we live in. This is not new. This has been going on for thousands of years. People have been attracted to people like this, and yeah. Anyways, so another one we got here, and I don't know what to make of this as well. I'm just going to read you this email. This is from 2017, so less than a year before those last emails. But Epstein, once again, getting himself involved in some sort of scientific, academic, creation, cloning program, regardless, some sort of program with. The email reads, "Hey DA, great exchanging ideas with you last Wednesday. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Please find attached a version of the virtual womb proposal I promised to send along. Your ideas, potential collaborators for this venture, are greatly appreciated. Lots of to help/save, man. Warmly, Mark." So I'm assuming that's Mark Tramo, Dr. Tramo for DA 2017 or 20171129. I think that's the date. That's the attachment. And then you can see, and he is in the Department of Neurology at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, the Department of Musicology at the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music. He is the director for the Institute for Music and Brain Science and the co-director of the University of California Multi-Campus Music Research Initiative, or UC Merced. So there's a lot of accreditations to this guy's name. Clearly he's a smart individual, but he's got Jeffrey Epstein copied BCC in here, as you can see up top, in this project for a virtual womb. So I don't know what the virtual womb is. I don't know where that ended up. I don't know what happened with that, but clearly you've got Epstein once again trying to wriggle his way into some sort of a project involving a virtual womb, a human cloning procedure, a designer procedure. I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, I got a ton of emails. It's just weird. It shows you that Epstein was not only involved in this world and he wanted to be a part of this world of the academics and the elites and the scientists and everything, but he was getting involved with these people for specific reasons. Right here, you can see he was thinking about trying to, I believe, figure out a way to clone human beings and clone whoever to be used in his sick. All right, so now we got another very interesting one. This is one I found, EFTA 01720153. It's a folder right here, IB57. You might be familiar with this because we've looked at a lot of these before on the channel. April 11th, 2005. But then down here is the really interesting thing. So this is clearly scanned in. It's a dirty, I don't know what you'd call this. It's like a note. You know, if someone would call your office back in the day and you didn't have an answering machine, someone could pick up the phone, your assistant could pick up the phone and write the note right here. And we've seen a lot of these. We've actually analyzed these on the channel before, but as you can see, March 19th, 2005, 8:26 a.m. for Jeffrey Epstein. The caller's name, redacted. The phone number, redacted. No message. Signed on the bottom, J. But no message here. It's what's on the back that's really interesting. What does this mean? So this is 2005, y'all. And on the back, it says Burfin, B-I-R-F-I-N, Burfin. I believe that's what it says. Which obviously seems to be a play on words of birthing babies. I could be wrong. I could stand corrected. But I don't know. To me, when I look at this and I read it, it clearly states Burfin babies. And it's on the back of this note. Why? Who was calling and why? This is 2005, so a long time ago, 20 years ago, Burfin. And you have more of these implications found in the files of Epstein being involved with some program or some desire, some activity, action to have babies, to get access to babies. Why? I mean, we know why. We can allege why. We don't know exactly why, but more talk of, and it's very interesting with this file. There's actually, let me see if I can pull it up. I should have had this pulled up. Yeah, okay. As you can see right here, here's what I was going to say. So here it is, less redacted. I don't know who this is. Tatham, Tathum, Tathum. If anyone can make out what that reads, I don't know. But this is that same note. And as you can see at the bottom, it's labeled confidential. You don't really see confidential on a lot of these files, but this, to me, how I interpret this, would mean that this is a file of elevated importance. It's been marked as confidential, as in, don't show this to anybody. This needs to be kept somewhat secret. Why? Why is this confidential? There are some really disturbing files out there and emails and parts of the Epstein files that aren't marked confidential. So why this file? Why this note? Why this message of Burfin? Why is this confidential in 2005? I don't know, but I thought it was curious. So with all that said, let's continue. All right, you got another message in 2018. This is November 27th, 2018. Epstein writes to somebody, "Isn't it nice to hear things before they actually happen?" And this person writes, I believe this is Eva Dubin who writes back. I don't know, or yeah, I guess I don't know who's sending this, but they're sending this to Epstein. Very cool. And I think that Epstein sent this to this person, Eva Dubin, I think. And it's a link to the New York Times, a story about gene editing in China. Let's see what it pulls up. Here it is. Here's the article. Chinese scientist claims to use CRISPR to make first genetically edited. The researcher, He Jiankui, I hope I said that right, offered no evidence or data to back up his assertions. If true, some fear the feat could open the door to designer. So they're basically saying embryos and genes have been edited. This talks about a gene editing technique and creating these, basically being a mad scientist and creating designer babies. If human embryos could be routinely edited, many scientists, ethicists, and policymakers fear a slippery slope to a future in which are genetically engineered for traits like athletic or intellectual prowess that have nothing to do with preventing devastating medical conditions. So, yeah, this article talks about the ethics of cloning and editing and all of that. But yeah, I don't know what to make of this. Isn't it nice to hear things before they actually happen? I think this is Epstein confirming in a way that this editing, designer gene editing is possible because he's actually done it, like we saw in those previous emails. That was before this. They're talking about designer and gene editing. So Epstein might have actually broken through, and I believe that he was definitely had cloned people in the past or had attempted to at Zorro Ranch, because they never searched Zorro Ranch. They never searched Zorro Ranch, where the people have stated that this is where Epstein's disturbing scientific, mad scientist experiments were happening. They were at Zorro Ranch. It's being widely reported now, and I've said this many times in the past, Zorro Ranch has never been searched. What the hell? How's that possible? They never searched Zorro Ranch, Epstein's one of his major properties. They never searched it. Yeah, so literally, as I said that, literally right after saying that and bringing up that exact thing, here's an email sent in 2020 talking about a woman who mysteriously self-deletes at a Spanish home. Thank you for investigating this. We don't know who's sending this and to who, but I'm assuming this is obviously some sort of a communication within the FBI or the U.S. Justice Department, one of the departments. They're talking about this activist probing the death of this person, the mysterious death. And then they say here, blank spoke of this going on at Zorro Ranch. She has said on record, meaning sworn testimony, you swear on a Bible, whatever, perjury. You're saying, according to the law, legally, this is true. She has said on record that Epstein offered her money to do this, birth for black market use. So, Zorro Ranch, farming. Yeah, that's all I can say to that, but that's exactly what we're talking about. But there are two different avenues here that you have to think about. There's Epstein trying to explore this, I believe, in a scientific way, how to do this intellectually, like literally clone or create designer or do this or that to have, as disturbing as it sounds, the perfect for a to have fun with. But then there's also the avenue that we've heard from victims that Epstein was simply having victims, impregnating them, and then forcing them to bear a lot of times at Zorro Ranch. There's multiple victims and survivors who have testified that this was happening, including in that journal. As you guys, if you've seen that video, I know a lot of people didn't watch that compared to some of the other videos on the channel, but the survivor talks about Epstein's of her and the fact that when the was born, it was just taken and she never saw what happened to it. It just disappeared. Here's another one sent in 2011 to Epstein from a black bar. Redacted. Great. So horrible to look at couples last night. Tried to be nice, but couldn't watch their videos anymore. Once again, I sincerely regret to inform you that objectively, I was the cutest girl at the event. What that event is, I don't know. What videos they're talking about, I don't know. Could be innocuous, could not be innocuous. That's the thing. You just don't know with the Epstein files. You don't know what is innocent and what is disgusting and dirty. Then you got this one's really disturbing from a David Stern to Jeffrey Epstein in 2014 in July of that year. And they say, can I rent LSJ or Little St. James, Epstein Island? I need a beach for the baby. Question mark, exclamation point. Don't know what that means. Don't know why this guy needs a beach for. No explanation given there. Really disturbingly, you want to rent LSJ. And you got to keep in mind with these emails that are coming, anything really post 2007, 2008, when Epstein was all over the media for his trial and his conviction in Florida and his placement on the offenders registry. All these people are referencing children and embarking on these cloning designer experiments with Epstein, knowing that he's not only a offender, but he's who likes girls. And I mean, he was convicted, he was slapped on the wrist with the sweetheart deal, but there were already allegations in the press and in the media that he had been trafficking children for years. So when you see that in 2014, after all that, can I rent Little St. James? I need a beach for the. What sense does that make? So let's just look up, who is this David Stern guy? David Stern, the guy who's talking about I believe this is him. This is a article from The Guardian published just 3 days ago. Files suggest David Stern was Jeffrey Epstein's man in the palace, passing messages to the former prince until 2019. So I guess this is David Stern right here with Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew in 2014. They're celebrating something. There's a little cake there. But yeah, this is released by the U.S. Department of Justice. So the DOJ. So I'm assuming this was a photo in the Epstein files of David Stern. Yeah, so Stern was, I guess, close to Prince Andrew. And yeah, I think this is David Stern right here sitting right next to the Queen of England, which is insane. In 2016, there's Epstein's guy literally right next to the Queen. According to this reporting, Epstein introduced David Stern to Andrew. Stern became a trusted friend to the royal family, so trusted that in 2016 he was made director of the St. George's House Trust. Nestled in Windsor Castle, St. George's House was funded in 1966 by the late Duke of Edinburgh as a private space where people of influence from right across society could come together to debate and discuss issues of national and international importance. So, sounds kind of like a Bohemian Grove type of deal where the upper crust of society could gather to get together and discuss geopolitical power issues and struggles. It's very interesting. But Stern sent Epstein explicit messages, including a photo of a woman, and invited a girlfriend of the financier to a changing of the guard ceremony outside Buckingham Palace. Stern also accompanied Prince Andrew, abroad. He reported on the then royal's doings to Epstein. He pitched business deals to the financier, to Epstein. So let's hear this one more time. Let's read this. This is important.
An indication of how close Stern's relationship with Epstein was, in 2014, he wished Epstein a happy birthday with the message, "Champagne for you, even though you don't drink it." This was identified by a photograph of champagne being poured over the apparently naked body of a young woman whose face is not identified. PA, or Prince Andrew, sends his birthday wishes and love, Stern added later that day. 2014, so that's, again, Prince Andrew tried to claim that Epstein and him were not friends in 2014. He's been very firm that he had no contact with Epstein years before that. So there's another debunk of Prince Andrew there. This Stern guy, David Stern, also sent lewd memes and jokes to Epstein. On May 18th, 2012, Epstein asked Stern when the lady, whose name is unknown, was set to arrive in Paris on Friday night. Stern replied, "Last one on Friday, leaving London 2001, arriving Paris 2317. He sent a photo not accessible in the released files and asked Epstein, "I assume that's her." Epstein responded, "I would like her to go both way with you." Stern said, "Let me see how it can be done. Return train on Saturday at 13:13. Okay." Epstein replied, "That would be helpful." So, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff talking about trips and people that they were with and setting stuff up. So this guy was really intimately linked with Epstein. And let me just remind you, he writes here, "Can I rent Little St. James? I need a beach for the baby." So this guy is close with Prince Andrew. This is 2014 when he was emailing Epstein with Andrew, wishing him happy birthday. And then he needs a beach for the babies. And he's clearly, as you can see here, talking about, like, I don't know if this is a speak, a woman leaving London, coming to Paris. I mean, there's a lot that we could read through here. I mean, a lot of messages between this guy and Epstein, apparently. But the talk of the babies is what we're focusing on here. Here we got another message redacted to Epstein, redacted with a photo. This message from the sender in 2011 says, "Yay, soon we will have," and a picture there. So we don't know who's sending that, why they're sending that to Epstein, why they're including that in a message to Epstein saying, "Soon we will have babies." Who's the we? Is Epstein going to have babies with this person? Are they adopting babies? Are they bringing into the CSAM production ring and the ring? What are they saying here? We don't know, but there's just once again talk of babies and Epstein having access to babies. So many files like that. Here's another mention of babies. January 2017. I don't know who sent this, but you can see they sent it to Epstein. It's redacted. And they said, "Tired made it until 12:40 a.m. Laughing face." Sent on January 1st, 2017. And there's a movie attached here. Image 4199. It's a movie file, a video file. I don't know where that file is or what that file is. Tired made it until 12:40 a.m. So I assume that's after New Year's. But who that is, why they're sending this to Epstein, we don't know. We don't know if it's actual, if it's young girls, victims, or just things we don't know. So again, 2018, we're going back to the gene editing, the cloning of the babies with the Epstein emails. This is from Richard Kahn, sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Subject, "I feel an obligation to be balanced. Noted biologist comes to defense of gene editing babies." And that's really all this message is. It's this guy, Richard Kahn. So Richard Kahn is an American accountant known for his association with Epstein, is one of the executors of his estate, named by federal investigators as a possible co-conspirator to his crimes, subpoenaed in August 25 by the House Oversight Committee for decades of materials, and has been working to turn over the Epstein files. So Kahn became Epstein's in-house accountant in 2005, went on to profit substantially from their relationship. Kahn was richly rewarded for directing, approving, enabling, and justifying millions of dollars in payments to fuel Epstein's enterprise. Victims claim Kahn's office provided them payments and logged costs for rent, tuition, doctor's visits, lingerie, and haircuts. He was listed as one of Epstein's co-conspirators by federal authorities in 2019, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, Darren Indyke, and Leslie Groff. Of the co-conspirators, only Ghislaine Maxwell was charged with crimes. Richard Kahn, was also named along with Darren Indyke in a 2021 update to the U.S. Virgin Islands v. Epstein's Estate et al. 2020, in which it was alleged that he, in his role as officer in every corporate entity funded by Epstein, had made payments from Epstein's accounts to alleged victims and recruiters, filed official financial statements for companies that he knew to be or should have known were false, facilitated a minimum of 3 same-sex sham marriages between alleged victims of Epstein. Okay, well, that's really strange. I've never heard of that angle. But yeah, so this guy's basically Epstein's accountant, very closely tied to Epstein, and he's sending Epstein articles about gene editing. I'm assuming this guy would know something, and it's just once again talking of genetically manipulating behind closed doors. And so I don't know if this is actually talking about, I don't necessarily think it is, but this is just a disturbing email either way that I found. In 2015, Epstein writes to this person who's redacted, "Did you get the money?" And then the person responds and sends photos, image 611, 610, and 534. They send these photos to Epstein and say, "Yes, Valdson passed me. I decided to write everything to blank to not disturb you. I already got the instruments. Look at those big. I'm in heaven, smiley face." And the third picture is the electronical drawing, which I made on my new dope computer. It's all about pussies and though. Sorry, dedicated to you. I miss you badly. So, don't know who this is, why they're sending Epstein images of pussies and dicks that are dedicated to them. Did you get the money? Epstein's paying another person. This is probably a victim. And to please Epstein, they're drawing pussies and dicks saying they're dedicated to you. Epstein is buying sex and power with his money. It never ends. It never ends. Here's a very, very interesting one that I found that I haven't seen anybody talking about. So this is from someone named Sarah Kay to someone named Rich Barnett in July of 2011. I'm just going to read you this message. "Hi, Rich. Jeffrey is asking if you can FedEx the painting he had made of the Massacre of the Innocents to the ranch. It's the large 9x9 canvas that we had rolled out for him to see in the entryway where they are killing. He wants to use it on the ranch and is hoping you could FedEx it to arrive by Wednesday. Thanks, Sarah." So, what the hell? There's so many things you could decode there. It's really strange. The fact that Epstein wants a painting known as the Massacre of the Innocents hanging at his ranch. I mean, that's such a twist. By the way, let's get into that real quick. The Massacre of the Innocents is a biblical story essentially about King Herod ordering the murder of all boys under the age of 10 in Bethlehem. So it's essentially a biblical tale about the mass murder of babies and children. And there are some very famous works of art that have emerged depicting this alleged historical event that stems from the Bible. And as you can see here, this is one of them. I think these are some of the people trying to find to kill. Yeah, there you can see there. Actually, these soldiers are going in and ripping out from their mother's arms, looking for any kids to kill. Here's another version of that same event depicted in a different piece of art. You've got, looks like they're about to stab, just kill the sword. Here it looks like a dead. Keep in mind, for censors, this is artwork. This is paint. These are pieces of art. These are not photos. These are famous pieces of art that hang in museums that thousands of people see every year. Millions of people. But, yeah, she's trying to save her baby here, and nope, they're going to stab the baby. Over here, there's another baby crying that's going to be murdered. I'm assuming this looks gray and gray. There are dead babies here. Here looks to be another. Really, really twisted art. Really, really sad art. Once again, here's another version of the same art. A baby getting stabbed and killed. More dead babies. More what looked to be dead. More dead stabbing of the kids. Sacrificing almost the kids. Ghoulish, absolutely horrific scenes throughout these paintings. I mean, just look at this. And the dead and the mothers begging. And then this is the famous one, which is what I think Epstein would have been getting the print of. You can see being ripped from their mother's hands. Here's a very sad they're trying to protect. Gray, dead with blood, dead, bloody kid. This kid about to be murdered. This kid, I mean, literally, this guy is like ripping this child up and is going to slam this child, looks like, to the ground. And truly horrific. Gray down here. Looks like a mother sobbing. And then this blood covered. Looks like they might be bashing the kids. That's maybe what he's going to do. He's going to bash the kid in this corner right here. Blood soaked everywhere down here. Blood. But I mean, just it was really gruesome, horrific painting that even I don't even want to look at for an extended period of time. It's truly horrific. And yet Epstein has a 9x9 canvas of that painting hanging what it seems to be in the entryway of Zorro Ranch. Which, I mean, we've talked about this on the channel. Epstein's artwork tells a story. Every piece that he had in the house told a story. He had all those pieces in those properties for reasons. You can decode all of that. This one is incredibly on the nose. A painting depicting the ritual of the mass murder of children. And even here in the email, I mean, I find the wording to be just so shocking. It's so just like treated like it's nothing. This Sarah person emailing Rich says, you know, we're looking for him to see in the entryway the piece of art where they're killing babies. I mean, it's just such a weird thing to have to say, like, oh, I want this art where they're murdering. I want to hang this art where they're killing in my home. And then to say, even in that same message, Jeffrey wants to use it on the ranch. What's he using it for? Why is he using it? Why are they not just describing it as him hanging it or displaying it? I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird. But we're almost done here. Then we got this one, obviously, is really crazy to me. So Glenn Dubin and his wife, Eva Dubin, good friends of Epstein's. You can look this up. It's very documented. There are photos of their children on Epstein's lap playing with Epstein. But here in 2016, Glenn Dubin writes, I believe this is to Epstein. Yeah. I get pictures of you flying over Mount Fuji, and I have to find out from Pegazi that you have twin. Eva and I are so excited for you. Please send pictures ASAP. So that's April of 2016, Glenn Dubin writing that to Jeffrey Epstein, saying, we find out, Eva and I, his wife and him, find out that you have twin. I don't know how to cut that any other way other than Epstein allegedly has two twin. And then, again, he writes back, he sends this to Epstein. Epstein says, Nicholas Bergruen's test tube. Just thinking. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation that I could find. Twins, he's asking Epstein, and there's attachments there. There are two images that he has sent. You can see subject is twins, attachments, image 1 and image 2. And then you got the reference to test tube. So one of Epstein's closest friends saying, oh my God, you've got twins. Are these test tube and sending pictures? To me, that sounds like Epstein was successful with his human cloning or designer projects years before he got the other scientists involved. And either he was talking about them already to his friends, or he was successful, because clearly this guy is talking about Epstein, or at least seeing him or hearing that Epstein has twin children. But it's never explained. And on the record, Epstein never had any kids. Here we go. Another thing to point out. There's a study here, the Institute for Music and Brain Science at Harvard. Remember, we referenced that guy at the top of this who was helping Epstein create the designer thing. A new study performed by the Institute for Music and Brain Science at Harvard has received substantial backing from science activist Jeffrey Epstein and his foundation, the Jeffrey Epstein Foundation. And basically, this is a study studying the physiological benefits of music on premature. And this article is just describing the fact that Epstein donated a bunch of money to a study that was focusing on premature. So he's clearly got an obsession with and science. And I think he would donate to things like this in order to get access to scientists that were working in fields like this, so that he could basically hire them on as his own personal mad scientists and fund alternative research projects that aren't discussed in the mainstream media or given press releases like this. But it's just comical, isn't it? And then I believe this is my final here. I mean, there's going to be more that I'm missing, but so yeah, To wrap this all up, we've seen some extremely disturbing files today. We've learned that Jeffrey Epstein potentially has children of his own, twins. We've learned that Jeffrey Epstein was in the science world funding studies dealing with human cloning and designer. We have seen emails talking about Epstein's artwork that shows the mass slaughter of innocent from the Bible. So obviously, Epstein had something with babies in his life. He either wanted babies, he wanted to perfect, he wanted test tube, he wanted to create them to be used in his training ring. He wanted them. I mean, it's perfect if you could find a way to create a that has no parents, that has nobody that cares about it, that you can just use to, I mean, that would be like the perfect, as dark as it is, that would be the perfect reality for some of these sickos. So you could see why Epstein would be looking into all of this, because it's like a no-brainer business move for him. It's like finding a young child that doesn't have parents and no siblings, no nobody in their life, and they can just be tracked forever because no one even knows they exist. They're not present in the system. They're created in an underground lab and then used. And that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, right? But you got to remember, in these files, we actually have Harvard scientists. And I mean, this is not something new. This is not something I'm making up, that Epstein's making up. There are millions of articles written about all of this, and studies and experiments that have been done. People are trying to create designer. I mean, there are animals that have already been cloned. There are animals that have been grown in a lab, in a test tube. There's meat that is grown in laboratories that is served nowadays at restaurants. Lab-grown meat. So, yeah, make of all of that what you will. But I'll be back tomorrow. I have so many more deep dives to come at you guys with. So many files that I've discovered and that we need to talk about. But until next time, y'all, thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name's Colin Brown. Keep that tinfoil hat on. Always stay suspicious. Question everything. And I'll see you guys next time.